again, Mrs Vingoe here. Last time I was reading you some of one of my favourite books, the first in the Harry Potter series, and we just got up to the part where Harry was seeing if he might be able to go to the zoo for Dudley's birthday. So I've come to sit with some of our lovely animals in the Explorers Room to find out what will happen when they get to the zoo. Today, nothing was going to go wrong. It was even worth being with Dudley and Piers to be spending the day somewhere that wasn't school, his cupboard, or Mrs Fig's cabbage-smelling living room. While he drove, Uncle Vernon complained to Aunt Petunia. He liked to complain about things. People at work, Harry, the council, the bank, Harry, and just a few other things. This morning it was motorbikes. "Roaring around like maniacs, the young hoodlums," he said as a motorbike overtook them. "I had a dream about a motorbike," Harry suddenly remembered. "It was flying." Uncle Vernon nearly crashed into the car in front. He turned right around in his seat and yelled at Harry, his face like a gigantic beetroot with a moustache. "Motorbikes don't fly!" Dudley sniggered. "I know they don't," said Harry. "It was only a dream." But he wished he hadn't said anything now. If there was one thing the Dursleys hated even more than him asking questions, it was him talking about things or acting any way that they shouldn't. No matter if it was in a dream or in a cartoon, they seemed to think that he might get dangerous ideas. It was a very sunny Saturday and the zoo was crowded with families. The Dursleys bought Dudley and Piers large chocolate ice creams at the entrance. And then, because the smiling lady in the van had asked Harry if he wanted anything before they could hurry him away, they bought him a cheap lemon iced lolly. It wasn't bad, Harry thought, licking it as they watched a gorilla scratching its head and looking remarkably like Dudley, except without the blonde hair. Harry had the best morning he'd had in a long time. He was careful to walk a little way away from the Dursleys so that Dudley and Piers, who were starting to get bored with the animals by lunchtime, wouldn't fall back on their favourite hobby of hitting Harry. They ate in the zoo restaurant, and when Dudley had a tantrum because his knickerbocker glory wasn't big enough, Uncle Vernon bought him another one, and Harry was allowed to finish the first. Harry felt afterwards that he should have known it was all too good to last. After lunch they went to the Reptile House. It was cool and dark in there, with lit windows all along the walls. Behind the glass, all sorts of lizards and snakes were crawling and slithering over bits of wood and stone. Dudley and Piers wanted to see a huge poisonous cobra and thick man-crushing pythons. Dudley quickly found the largest snake in the place. It could have wrapped its body twice around Uncle Vernon's car and crushed it into a dustbin, but at that moment it didn't look like it was in the mood. In fact, it was fast asleep. Dudley stood with his nose pressed against the glass, staring at the glistening brown coils. "Make it move!" he whined at his father. Uncle Vernon tapped on the glass, but the snake didn't budge. "Do it again!" Dudley ordered. Uncle Vernon rapped the glass shortly with his knuckles, but the snake just snoozed on. "Oh, this is boring!" Dudley moaned and shuffled away. Harry moved in front of the tank and looked intently at the snake. He wouldn't have been surprised if it had died of boredom itself. No company except stupid people drumming their fingers on the glass, trying to disturb it all day long. It was worse than having a cupboard as a bedroom, where the only visitor was Aunt Petunia hammering on the door to wake you up. At least he got to visit the rest of the house. The snake slowly opened its beady eyes. Slowly, very slowly, it raised its head until its eyes were level with Harry's. And then it winked. Harry stared. Then he looked quickly around to see if anyone else had been watching. They weren't. He looked back at the snake and winked too. The snake jerked his head towards Uncle Vernon and Dudley, and then it raised its eyes to the ceiling. It gave Harry a look that said quite plainly, "I get that all the time." "I know," Harry murmured through the glass, though he wasn't sure if the snake could hear him. It must be really annoying. The snake nodded vigorously. "Where do you come from, anyway?" Harry asked. The snake jabbed its tail at a little sign next to the glass. Harry peered at it. Boa constrictor, Brazil. Was it nice then? The boa constrictor jabbed its tail at the sign again, and Harry read on. This specimen was bred in the zoo. Oh, I see. So you've never been to Brazil? As the snake shook its head, a deafening shout behind Harry made both of them jump. Dudley! Mr. Dursley! Come and look at this snake! You won't believe what it's doing! Dudley came waddling towards them as fast as he could. Out of the way, you! He said, punching Harry in the ribs. And caught by surprise, Harry fell hard on the concrete floor. What came next happened so fast that nobody saw how it happened. 1 second, Piers and Dudley were leaning right up close to the glass, and the next, they'd leapt back with howls of horror. Harry sat up and gasped. The glass front of the snake's enclosure had disappeared. The great snake was uncoiling itself rapidly and slithering out onto the floor, and people throughout the reptile house screamed and started running for the exits. As the snake slid swiftly past him, Harry could have sworn a low hissing voice said, Brazil, here I come. Thanks, amigo. The keeper of the reptile house was in shock. But the glass, he kept saying. Where did the glass go? The zoo director himself had to make Aunt Petunia a cup of strong, sweet tea while he apologised over and over again. Piers and Dudley could only gibber, and as far as Harry had seen, the snake hadn't done anything except snap playfully at their heels as it passed. But by the time they were back in Uncle Vernon's car, Dudley was telling them how it had nearly bitten off his whole leg, while Piers was swearing that it tried to strangle him to death. But worst of all, for Harry at least, was Piers calming down enough to say, Harry, you were talking to it, weren't you? Can you see the snake slithering out of the reptile house whilst all the people are running away? Oh my goodness. It looks a little bit, that illustration, like a game you might have played as well. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Perhaps if you have that story at home, you can carry on reading. Or if you have a smartphone or an iPad or a tablet, you could download Audible that has ebooks on it, because I've heard that Harry Potter is free on there at the moment. Okay, see you soon. Bye.